Hi, welcome to Ketobiography. I'm your host, Robin Dobbins. Today's guest has spent nearly a decade living a ketovore lifestyle and using food as a powerful tool to transform both his mind and his future. After facing significant mental health challenges early in life, he found that a ketogenic way of eating opened the door to renewed focus, stability, and possibility. He is currently a grad student exploring how metabolism and the brain shape who we are. He also serves as a community platform lead with Metabolic Collective, helping to grow a grassroots network advocating for metabolic therapies in mental health. Please welcome Benjamin Moore. Oh, that's so funny. Please welcome Benjamin Boyd to Keto Biography. Ben, that's hilarious. My sister, her last name is Moore, and when she was pregnant, she wanted to name her. She was coming up with names, so she wanted to name Benjamin Moore because of the paint. And then she was like, "Let's go with Dinty, like Dinty Moore, the little like jarred food."
Oh my
And
God.
I don't know why that just flowed out of my mouth. And I'm not even going to edit it out. It's
That's
hilarious. I
perfect.
did it. I totally messed up. And it seems to be a theme. If y'all read the Metabolic Collective newsletter, I wrote Ben's name wrong. That was all me. So it's a theme. I'm just going to always mess up your name. And
Oh yeah.
apparently we're just going to have to deal with this.
To this day, I blame my mother for wanting to be different and spelling my name and all different kinds
I'm Robin with a Y. So you
Right.
would think I would be really in tune to these things. But
Well,
it,
thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the invitation.
I'm so glad that you joined us. And here, I really thought that you've already kind of made the rounds with your story because your story is very interesting. And to find out that this is the first official breaking news, first
Yeah.
official podcast, I'm super excited to have you on. It's a passion of mine to just get stories out there. I really feel like, if my story doesn't resonate with someone, yours will resonate with someone. And the more people that we can touch with our stories, the more people we can bring into this world because it's just such a new, well, it's an eye-opening thing. Like we go from thinking that this is how things should be to learning something new. And I'm sure you'll get into that more, especially since you've devoted so much of your life to this. So well, as I explained before we went live, what I like to do is to just let you tell your story the way you want to tell it. So I'm going to disappear for a little while, and I would love to hear all about your journey and how you ended up where you are today.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start with my teens. So back in, let's see, 2015, 2014 or 2015, I was at pretty much peak symptoms. My mom and I, we had jumped back and forth from place to place, and with that came all kinds of turmoil in the home. With that, lots of mental health symptoms persisted, and it bled into my academics. It was kind of just not being able to focus. I had extreme depressive symptoms. They would often see me in the cafeteria sitting alone and just not really connecting with my peers. So after seeing a school psychologist, I had been diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm not sure if it was a full diagnosis, but there were depressive symptoms that they mentioned. Um, so I was put on what in the U.S. Terms of 504 plan for students with ADHD, and I had trouble going on, but we had tried all different kinds of medications afterwards, and with it, though I did see minor improvement, there were extreme mood issues, and um, the dosage of ADHD medications on top of antidepressants kind of led to like chaotic moods at times. Um, and from then, I had gone in and out of psychiatric treatment to inevitably drop out of school entirely. Um, by ninth grade, my grades were pretty much in the dirt, and it was even a struggle for my mom to convince the school board to actually get me into high school altogether. With this, there were also physical altercations. So I was pre-diabetic at about 14. By then, I was just not in good shape. I was feeling, irritable all the time, fatigued. Again, didn't want to go to school, though it was because I had a loss of interest, but like I felt hopeless in my efforts to be successful in academia. So um, I on top of that, with having all kinds of chaos with medication changes and psychiatric visits, I just begged my mom to drop out. And I did so, went out of school for a little while. And during this process, it gave us more time to look into dietary regimens to get my weight down. After a little bit, we had tried a variety of different diets. I was vegetarian at one point. We even tried to do vegan for a little while, and it wasn't too bad with my mother's support, but ultimately there wasn't really much results coming in. It was about, you know, trying my best rather than having a full-on solution to the problem. It was more centered towards losing weight because I felt it was just needed for my health and my diabetes potentially, uh, or my pre-diabetes potentially turning into full-on type 2. And by about 16 or 17, we realized that what we had tried just didn't really work, and my weight would just come back and symptoms would persist and so on. By 2017, however, my stepfather came home talking about a documentary he watched, which encouraged a paleo-based ketogenic diet. And in this documentary, they had followed along a series of um, people dealing with both psychiatric symptoms, and I believe there was one child with autism who had, after a ketogenic diet, uh, prevented many of the symptoms he used to have. So we decided to give it a try. And I remember distinctly that the night or two afterwards, after watching the documentary, my mom and stepdad coming in with all kinds of meat and butter, and I was like, oh boy, what are we getting into this time? But like at this point, we were just like, we'll try anything. Um, and yeah, it was a struggle at first. I remember having the psychological barrier of it being all fat, and like, and reasonably so, because throughout my entire life I always was told that fat was the enemy and we wanted to lower cholesterol as much as possible. Fats were the origin of, high cholesterol. That was what I knew, and to completely pull a 180 and have all fat was just, it was hard for me to wrap my head around. And yeah, it was a struggle for the first few weeks, but then week 3, week 4 came along. I stayed with it. My mom and stepdad kept at it too, and I felt a lot better. Um, Within the next, I mean, between 4 to 6 weeks, I had begun to lose a significant amount of weight. Um, and maybe by month and a half, 2 months, I was down 50, 60 pounds. I was like, whoa. We had originally taken me out to a 3-week weight loss camp program to specifically have us regimented in a strict schedule to make sure we had physical exercise 20, like almost like 9 to 10, like maybe even 12 hours out of the day, depending on the schedule. And after that 3-week program, I only lost 20 pounds, and I immediately gained it all back right afterwards. So I was like, at least on a weight loss standpoint, this was amazing. But after 3 or 4 weeks, I was like, wow, I'm remembering a lot more. Like I remember my mother constantly getting at me for not remembering to either, I don't know, take the garbage out, like putting things on a grocery list, that sort of thing. Just little things around the house. And I was just, it was extremely vivid. All these little idiosyncratic things I needed to remember in the day, it just came back to me. And I was like, wow, what's going on? Same thing with long-term memory. I remembered all these kinds of things from childhood, or whether it be like things that I was doing that day that brought it back to recollection. It just was very quick. I was very quick to remember long-term and short-term memory. My focus was a lot better, though. In my teen years, I was more worried about like how I could focus in a video game. But of course, when I came back to school, that was a huge game changer. Um, so uh, let's see, maybe a year in, I decided, you know what, like I'm losing all this weight, I'm feeling better, I'm going to try and go back to school. Um, and I went and signed up for a high school equivalency diploma, and it was it reminded me of my old assignments, and with that came a little bit of reluctance, but after a while it was just like second nature, and with the diet, it was just, it wasn't nearly as there wasn't nearly as much friction. um I could remember things correctly. My test scores were a lot better. It was easier to recall memories and actually give solid, articulate, short answers. Um, and I ultimately graduated with pretty good scores. Um, and I was just going in, thinking I I just was like, oh, just kind of thinking I'll maybe get some kind of job on the side, and they offered employment programs through the same equivalency diploma department. So with that, I took an Intro to Human Services course. Um, this, on top of my high school equivalency, was where I got the idea of wanting to be a mental health counselor, or to do something in applied psychology. I fell in love with Carl Rogers and all the existential psychoanalysts, and yeah, I just got really deep into psychotherapy. So um, you can see now where jumping to today, how I emerged as someone who wanted to research the neurometabolism of personality. Um, After a little while, we had talked to a couple of different schools, and ultimately I decided to give undergrad a try. And going into it, was very nervous. I was a high school dropout going into college, thinking this is going to be the hardest thing that's ever happened. Um, jump ahead 3.5 years. I graduated with my bachelor's in applied psych with honors. And um, between all this, I learned a little bit more about neurobiology. And then, of course, getting into this space, the neurometabolism of mental health. Um, and of course, between all that, I had to understand why keto was such a uh, catalyst for all of my academic success. And I went into reading about Georgia Eads' book, all of her lectures, Chris Palmer's lectures, Zoltan Sarnyai's lectures, and I just thought, like, oh my gosh, finally, I have my niche, and it makes sense. And I just felt so proud of myself that not only was there a place where my experience was seen clinically and scientifically, but I could actually understand all of it now that I have a foundation of not so much neurobiology, but the clinical psychology of all of it. And that brings me to today, where I have my thesis on the potential efficacy of on borderline personality disorder, the ketogenic diet for borderline personality disorder. And I'm hoping to just look more into how metabolic underpinnings shape how we react and kind of create different patterns of behavior. So yeah, that's pretty much me right now. And I'm really glad to be a part of this community and really grateful to be where I'm at. And I owe pretty much, I don't want to say all my success, but a very significant amount of my success to the ketogenic diet.
Well, ketogenic diet and then metabolic therapies, because it's not
Yeah.
just what you eat, but it's other lifestyle choices that you make too. But
Yeah.
before we talk about those things, I'm going to go back and just ask for some clarification. So I'm going to go back to you being pre-diabetic when you were in your early teens. Did your doctors wanted you to lose weight because obviously you went on a weight loss journey. Did they want to medicate you on top of your already mental health ADHD meds that you had?
No, at that point it was pretty early stage. They were just going to try and get me to lose the weight. There was, at least to my recollection, there was no talk of getting me on statins or anything like that, or any kind of diabetes medication. But I'm sure if I had followed the same conventional path, it would have been a topic of discussion soon after.
Yeah, yeah, I imagine so. And probably you were ahead of this kind of time where we are now, where the treatments are being allowed earlier and earlier. So maybe you were just kind of ahead of that curve. It's kind of scary that that's where things are now.
Yeah, I actually talked about this with a classmate of mine the other day, and she experienced like similar to me in the ADHD world, having to deal with ADHD medications, and we had talked about how thankful we were that we were not in the original the first generation ADHD medications where it was strictly like Adderall and Ritalin, and that was just the complete like burst of norepinephrine and dopamine to the frontal regions of the brain. We were on the medications that were kind of slow release throughout the day, but despite it being slow release, I still had like extreme like anger outbursts and like long depressions afterwards. It was yeah, it was like, though, like, I don't want to say that it was all medications. We did have like, I was moving around a lot. My mom had recently divorced and she was dealing with having to like uh, get laid off, but also dealing with a teen. So I don't want to say it's completely medication, but it didn't help that I was still trying to figure out pharmacologically how I could cope with all of the outside stressors.
Well, I understand that completely because I've been through it myself, but you're told that these medications are going to help you and you're going to feel better, but you don't actually, like, I think if you ask anybody that's on this side of it now, did the medications help you? The answer across the board is no. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it was a long time, uh, a long time to actually figure out nothing. We were over, like, I think I originally started my first ADHD medication maybe like early 13, maybe 14, something like that. Um, and it took 2 or 3 years to figure out there was no upping or lowering of dosage that would help, because there was always either no effect or extreme effects, where I'd be on a low dosage and feel absolutely nothing, still have depressive symptoms, and then they would put me on an extremely high dosage, and I'd be like, not like manic, but like these aggressive energy-based episodes where I would just be off the walls, not knowing what to do with my emotions, not being able to contain myself. And like, I think about it from a developmental standpoint where, of course, teens are still trying to figure out how to regulate their emotions. But to that, like, you can't say that it was just developmental when the degree of the emotional outbursts were so heavy. And with that, I at one point begged my mom to get me off of medications. And this was after being put in emergency inpatient and having to just come to find out that it just wasn't going to work. And yeah, it was devastating for a while, just not having any answers. But after a little bit, and just that one day figuring out, hey, maybe this diet will work. um I went off of, I mean, it started with just getting off of medications, but then afterwards the diet and exercising and just trying to support a healthier lifestyle. Again, not just a ketogenic diet, but a series of metabolic therapies, ample sleep, exercise, breath work, all of these things, and experimenting in these holistic strategies was really what projected me back into high school, into college, into grad school. And yeah, since then I've just been trying to maintain that balance of um, just metabolic rhythm, pretty much.
And it's interesting to me that you were aware while you were medicated, that you were aware that too little was too little and too much was too much, and there was no like great in between. You know, and that you were fighting with it. Like you knew all along that you were kind of fighting with this treatment and it wasn't working, but you didn't have another alternative at the time. And did it ever make you feel the way you feel now?
No, absolutely not. No, it was just I felt so bad because I had no control over my emotions, and I knew how much my mom was struggling with me. And looking back, you could see the little things that could have maybe lessened the episodes, and like, we got in arguments and stuff like this, but ultimately it wasn't me having these huge outbursts. It wasn't me having these extremely low points and just laying in bed all day. And then yeah, there was all kinds of stuff that went on, but like, again, the medication just didn't help the situation whatsoever.
Yeah, and so you said that your family, well, first of all, you said that you watched a documentary. What do you remember the name of the documentary?
I wish I did. I can't remember
Because
it.
I know exactly which one you're talking about, and it's not hitting me now. And I was trying to look real quick, but I don't want to look and then miss what something you have to say. And so everybody's probably screaming, "It's this." We'll look it up, and I'll put it in the show notes because neither of us are
Okay.
remembering right now. We'll just go we'll just go with that. But yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about. I hate that it's escaping me. But you
Right.
did say that your mom and your stepfather went on that food journey with you. So did they continue that? Like, are they still doing it now, even though you're not in the home? Or slash, did they see any differences in themselves while they were eating this way with you?
Yeah, I remember them having significant weight loss too. My mom felt a lot better. I remember her like uh, going through it with me, and kind of experiencing the same thing I was, and that kind of what motivated us to keep at it. Um, they had gone on to do keto for probably 4 or 5 years strict, and since then they still kind of dabble in carbs, and they have their little cheat meals from time to time, but since I had moved out of the house and been in my my own living situation, I've been keeping relatively strict. Um, it's been a while since I had done like a full on cheat meal, and recently I'd been cutting out different uh, like dairy, for instance, trying to experiment to see if there's any other ways I can optimize my diet. But so far, it's just based on circumstance, context, and just pretty much what I'm doing in that day, and I kind of orient my strategies from there. Like if I have a high stress day ahead of me, I would probably not want to intermittent fast that day. But then there's days if I have completely free, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a 24-hour, or I'm going to do a 36-hour. Um, so yeah, again, I'm not, um, I'm not all for going gung ho like I did at the beginning. When I first started, it was pretty much a uh, very regimented, very high fat, mineral based ketogenic diet. And we had gotten all different kinds of like high quality foods. And of course, that's great in a like ideally. But if you're still struggling at the start and it's getting to be tough on your budget, I wouldn't say to go like as strict as I did. Um, Getting any like lowering your carbs to that much is great to start as it is. Keeping, 50, 40, 30 grams or less is just it's going to do so much for you. And I guess if I were to talk to myself 8 or 9 years ago and uh, say what I should do, it would just be try not to be too hard on yourself and too strict in your approach, because ultimately it's all about balancing what you have going on. Um, so
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that too many people, I mean, and it works for some people, but I think that's what ends up becoming burnout is that they jump in with both feet and they're super, super strict and then don't kind of allow themselves. Like there's a grievance process that you really have to go through. Like you
oh
have to grieve the loss of these things that you used to find as comfort food. And if you just jump in and then all of a sudden you start missing stuff and then the things start coming back in and then you start feeling bad and then you have like this guilt cycle and it's just on and on and on and on.
yeah,
And it really does not have to be that way. You can kind of take your baby steps into it as well. Like both ways work, but you have to know yourself for which way is going to be the best for you.
yeah, and like a lot of food, at least I mean, especially in the United States, um, is culture bound. There are a lot of um, there are a lot of media outlets that kind of prey upon all these fast food restaurants to advertise their new showing. So like, you know, different restaurants having promotions or like collaborations with movies or different streaming services and all this sort of stuff. It's just and that ties into different hobbies and stuff like that. And all of this creates a a culture, a comforting culture that kind of perpetuates the bad eating. And to break from that is it's almost losing a sense of your own identity, especially if you grow up as a 21st century digital boy like me. When you're like a gamer as a kid and you have all these collaborations with different fast food joints and you want to get like, the whatever toy is with that particular piece of media, it's just you have to get it. And to just say no to that, it's really tough. And yeah, there's a total grievance process. And
I
to get
never thought about that before either. Like I'm not in that gaming world. So yeah, so I guess so there's things that you have to like eat so many of these things and turn in your this thing and then you can get the is
right.
that how that wow.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, it's I mean, that, and like it doesn't even have to be video games. Like think of the whole Monopoly promotion with McDonald's and stuff like that. It's just you get to play along, you're able to relate to your coworkers about it. It's just it's a comforting cycle that creates unity within groups, whether you're from a completely different background or not. And of course, from a social level, that's extremely healthy. But on a physiological level, it's very, very bad, very problematic. So I think that's what I hope to do at the Metabolic Collective, really, is to create that same amount of unity, but in a metabolically healthy context. So
Yeah. And I wish that this was the lead in I was looking for, but I'm going to come back to Metabolic Collective because I still have some follow-up questions here. Because you did talk about the fact that you were on medication, and a lot of people ask about like kind of weaning off, titrating off, and then like having like bounce back type of symptoms. And I know that I've seen in your story that you didn't necessarily follow the practical guidelines of working with a medical practitioner. So I'm going to say this again for everyone who's listening. Please, 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 if you are thinking that you need to remove some medications, you need to work with a provider. Our stories, because we both did it wrong. Don't worry about it. We both did it. No, I didn't. I worked with a provider for one, but the other one was giving me headaches, and I was like, I'm just getting rid of this, and I really should not have done that. So, just everyone else out there, don't do like we did. So,
yes.
how did you finally kind of get off of medications? Are you on any types of medications now? And do you recall any of this kind of bounce back? For me at the time, I didn't know to even be looking for that. And you've started nearly 10 years ago too. I'm not sure if you knew to look for that as well, because it was kind of like new and emerging at the time.
No, I had gone off of medications about a year and a half before, maybe 2 years before I had started the ketogenic diet. And I think that that was in my favor because I was able to focus on my natural state, moving and transitioning into a ketogenic state. Though I had titrated off back and forth in my teens, there was an initial episode which put me into emergency inpatient that was kind of the last straw. And we had worked, at least my parents worked vigorously to just get me off of medications because they were pretty much aware that that was the origin of the outburst too. And the whether the depressive symptoms were the of the same origin too, it just seemed like there wasn't much significant change, both on the ADHD side and depressive side, to keep with any kind of medication. So I tried the ADHD and depressive meds for a while, but that last straw was going into emergency inpatient and trying to get off completely. I had gone in for at least, like, clinically speaking, a pill change or a medication change, but upon discharge, we just discontinued all medications.
I understand. Yeah, sometimes you have to make these hard choices because it's like, is this thing actually helping or is it making it worse? Or yeah, I'm very thankful for you, and I'm sure you are too, that even though your family was going through a lot of turmoil on its own, that they never lost sight of you and caring for you. It sounds like they were all very supportive all along.
Absolutely. My mother was a godsend the entire time. Just constantly having me in the front, like in the foreground. It was just, despite losing her job, despite having to move around a lot on her own before she'd met my stepfather, she had made sure I was okay, or tried her very best to make sure I was okay. And though the living situations were definitely not ideal, it was just all about, it was her care that really pushed us through all of that, and what eventually got me to where I am today. So for that, I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah, I'm grateful for it too, because we've gotten to know each other, and you certainly have a lot to offer, and you still have so much to give to the world. And so let's talk about your metabolic therapies. We hinted at some of your strategies earlier. What are you doing now? How you're living this grad school life? I'm sure that comes with a grad school budget. So how do you maintain your health with your strategies now?
It's a lot, like, comparatively to when I first started and having the support of my mom. It takes a lot of delicate planning, and it's a lot easier than some may realize. Even if you are a grad student and having to juggle that on top of part-time work. In undergrad, I was doing keto, about 36 hours a week part-time and full-time school. Um, it's it's really tough, but it's doable. With it, you have access to more than you realize. Um, and going further and further into grad school, it's not like I mean, give or take a few instances and maybe having an assistantship, your budget isn't getting any better. So I try my best to um, not one keeping the meat to bought in bulk. It helps me a lot. Finding different butchers that'll allow for buying fat in bulk as well, that helps a lot. Of course, that's for animal-based keto. For plant-based keto, it's a lot different. It may also be a little bit better, a little bit more budget friendly. Coconut oil is very cheap in bulk as well. Avocados, whether like give or take a couple stores, can really help you get your fats in. It's super high in potassium too. And for me, having a mineral heavy background, that I had gone heavy with a lot of salt and a lot of avocados for that potassium uptake. Since then, I oops, there we go.
You're still here.
Oh, okay. It said I reconnected, but okay. Yeah, so it was a little bit of a transition point going from undergrad to grad school from a financial standpoint and sticking to keto, but ultimately it's doable. You can buy your stuff in bulk. As the years go on, you learn to look at labels and realize what is truly keto and what has a lot of fillers, and though it will say keto friendly, is not the best, even if you're just sticking with simply glycemic control. Um, and it's a long process, and though it can be tough at times, and you stumble, you realize, oh, this kicked me out of ketosis, or oh, this particular item has either maltodextrin or dextrose or something that spikes your insulin and takes you out of ketosis. um, you can get back up, and if you have a strong community, like Metabolic Collective, it's really it's manageable, even as a grad student. And there are a lot of different people out there like me who are also in school right now doing ketogenic lifestyle, and they have different resources to help you stay on a budget if that's an issue for you. Besides that, I do intermittent fasting from time to time. I will always keep my sleep schedule to sleeping between 9 and 10 a.m. You can ask my girlfriend. I cannot stay up later than that. And keeping for me at least, keeping a strict alarm, it really just keeps the circadian clock going, and having your body understand when is the time to rest and digest, when is it time to actually wake up. Besides that, give or take a few different uh, lifestyle changes, that's pretty much my fundamentals for most of the day.
I will add that you do have a Think Smart profile that is on Metabolic Mind's website, and I will link that in our comments as well, because I did read over that, and a lot of that was the same stuff. Like, I'm the same way. I have a sleep schedule.
Yeah.
I spent so much time asleep while I was medicated that once I kind of woke up, I was like, I'm never taking a nap again. So I have like a strict no nap rule. But I do like to have this wake sleep cycle, and if it ever gets bumped, I'm just not right. Like, I can tell when my sleep is messed up. So yeah, the same thing. It's a very rare occasion that I'll break that rule. And I appreciate how you talked about it, keto on a budget, and like, it doesn't have to be all meat heavy. Like, there's other things that are out there, and that there are groups that you can find that will help you out.
Yeah.
And I really, really love what you mentioned about there's other people like you out there in school right now who are doing this, because this is the creation of the change. You have this lived experience where this has helped you out, and now you are seeking this as your career path. This is the future, and this is how, okay, we're not able to necessarily change the minds of people who are practicing now, but the new people who are coming up, this future is where we're getting these concepts introduced. And I just absolutely love hearing that you're not the only one out there, that there's others out there that are doing it as well. And I know you've talked to me a little bit. Well, you talk about a lot because it's your life, but you talk about your thesis and what you're working on in school, and that you talk to your professors and they're on board with you doing some of the things, some ideas that you have. So I'm not a grad student. So you might have to dumb it down to my level, but what is it that you are working on now, and what do you see yourself doing in the future?
So right now, I'm just slowly but surely creating a finalized draft of my thesis, which is ketogenic metabolic therapy for treatment-resistant borderline personality disorder, or BPD. So BPD is characterized by a multitude of unstable relationships and identity disturbances. With it comes a lot of different interpersonal conflicts, which affect, honestly, equal amounts the people that they interact with and they themselves. So when I say identity disturbances, it's often that in psychiatric disorders, you have particular symptoms which are kind of detached from your everyday life and the patterns of behavior that become who you are. In borderline personality disorder, you are these particular episodes and these instances of interpersonal relations. You yourself, as an identity, are attached to people you interact with. And in BPD, when you detach from these relationships, it can create extreme destabilization of your sense of self, whether it be romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships. All of this is extremely sensitive. It's due to a lot of different things. There's many different similarities, at least in childhood, to post-traumatic stress disorder or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a lot of different connections to childhood abuse, neglect, but ultimately it stems from this extreme fear of abandonment. You don't want to lose this person because this person is technically a part of you. And because you're so emotionally invested in your interpersonal relationships, taking that away can lead to what is almost like a death of yourself. And you often see after these interpersonal detachments, like extreme depressive episodes, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts. In fact, this is the one personality disorder with the highest suicide rate. Highest. I'm not sure if it's both attempt and commitment rate, but it is one of the highest out of at least all personality disorders. It's most prevalent among women, though there are a lot of men who have BPD as well. And it's extremely debilitating because not only is it extremely hard to, I mean, it's hard to treat, but not many clinicians are able to emotionally handle those with BPD for very long. And despite having, I believe, 4 or 5 different personalized theoretical approaches in psychotherapy for BPD, we are still at I think, a little above 50% non-adherence rate when it comes to psychotherapy. Again, and there's also no pharmacological medication specifically for BPD. We've tried anxiolytics, anticonvulsants, we've tried antidepressants, but ultimately this is trying to lessen the symptoms of the emotional conflicts when detaching from relationships, or trying to find a sense of self or find a sense of individuality in your relationships. What I hope to bring to the forefront in my thesis is that a ketogenic lifestyle can help stabilize someone during these conflicts, and ultimately give themselves a sense of individuality or a sense of independence from other people. Because though it can originate from a fear of abandonment, it's often correlated with codependent relationships. And of course, whether you're diagnosed or not, codependent relationships are not something you particularly want to be a part of. So finding that sense of individuality will help them get a sense of resilience, agency, and ultimately get them out of relationships like that and develop a secure attachment style among all of their relationships. So yeah, there's a couple of different metabolic pathways that I've looked into specifically. Though I'm not a neurobiologist by any means, there are a few metabolic pathways to mention. There's the kynurenine pathway, which is, I believe, a precursor to tryptophan, which happens to be pretty much the determinant of neuroprotection and negates neurotoxicity when it comes to different forms of metabolism. And what ketogenic metabolism does is it interrupts this pathological cascade dealing when it comes to kynurenic acid and the kynurenine pathway. Of course, you see this in a lot of different articles across multiple psychiatric disorders, and the neurobiology of many psychiatric disorders are similar when it comes to overall limbic function and how different lower level emotion based areas communicate with frontal regions or executive regions that deal with like rational decision making, and just all around negation of emotional, like extreme emotional arousal. But in BPD, there's a particular area, the anterior cingulate cortex, that happens to be extremely downregulated in BPD patients. And this has to do not only with the emotional regulation within the limbic system, but has to do with error correction in particular. So when we deal with particular social situations, we have kind of an emotional appraisal that comes with that. And I believe the anterior cingulate in BPD, when it's downregulated, is partly the origin of all of these fluctuations, these interpersonal fluctuations. So on top of that, and what's seen in ketone metabolism in the brain from other psychiatric trials, I hope to see that those given a ketogenic diet that have BPD will experience something similar, and maybe help with these idiosyncratic regions that are specific to BPD. So that's very small, like in a nutshell, but that's what I'm trying to get at in my paper. And of course, it's I'm still learning so much. I have so much left to learn, and yeah, it's just the beginning. Despite being 100+ pages into my revision, it's a lot, but yeah.
I'll mention that that is also attached to your Think Smart profile, that you can actually click on it and see a draft version of this. So if anybody's interested in the more detailed version, it does exist in a space where you can see it. Your personal experience is ADHD with depressive symptoms. So how did you land on borderline personality disorder?
So what's interesting is what came with the ketogenic diet was a very longing for like an ambitious pursuit. So when I got into undergrad and realized I could do pretty well, I was like, let's see how far I can go. And I'd taken an abnormal psychology class where we learned about all different kinds of mental disorders. And when we talked about borderline, this was one that was seen as the most ambiguous and the one that was most challenging to conceptualize. So when we went to our final paper, where we had to do an in-depth analysis and just pretty much historical review of a mental disorder, of course, I was the one to pick borderline. And from then on, I had just thought about, keto, and I had taken a couple of neurobiology classes, and I think it was my senior year where I had taken a behavioral neuroscience course through a neighboring university where I was able to write a research paper intersecting keto with borderline. So that was where that originally started. It was probably like a 9 or 10 page paper, and then I was just constantly adding and subtracting, and then adding like much more, just 2 steps ahead, 1 step back. And yeah, I've just been tweaking it ever since. So I hope to make it into a full dissertation, and potentially a proposal for a research trial at some kind of graduate school that will be willing to accept me. So yeah, I'm just in my master's program right now, and it's strict clinical hours and practicum work, but yeah, I still haven't given up on it. And so far, from what I've seen in my preprint, there's definitely there's people who want to see this, and it's an idea worth spreading. So yeah, we'll see how it goes in the next couple of years or so.
This community of people with borderline personality disorder have needed you to come along with this ambitious pursuit. So they're just all patiently waiting to see what you come up with, and hopefully it does get to do the things that you want it to do. And it's hard to imagine that this is all coming from a kid at 14 who couldn't even finish high school, and how much that has changed in such a small amount of time, to go from I don't think I can learn a thing, my head just won't take it, to I'm not only going to learn things, I'm going to research things, and I'm going to pick the hardest one and and just continuously plug away at it and take this to further and further places in the future. It's absolutely amazing. So you talk about your ambitious pursuit. My ambitious pursuit is Metabolic Collective. It may not be on the same level, but it's still way more out there than being.
From your stress levels at times, it's pretty much right there.
It's not really stress levels. It's Oh, really, it's this creating something out of an idea. Like we're creating actual real, tangible things out of ideas. It's very exciting. It's not really stressful. The stressful part is that as uh, the contract that we have is part time, and I could spend endless hours doing these things, and I really have to try to reel myself back in and participate in with my family, because I could sit and just plug away at it all day long because I'm just so excited. Yeah, I guess that makes it ambitious, but it also restricted at the same time. But that's how we've gotten to know one another. And so I'd like you to talk about your role with Metabolic Collective and how you see this, because you talk about community quite a bit in your own story. So how you see this helping others.
Yeah, I I see it as not only a place where people have have a place to talk, they can offer support, but there are a lot of different people out there who have individualized services where whether it's facilitated in an event or not, Metabolic Collective can actually come in or be a catalyst for all of these different people who offer different metabolic therapies for mental health. Um, as a community lead, we're beginning to start a team of moderators. I lead the Facebook group in particular, and we hope after a few kinks straightened out, it will become a place where we have all these people coming in, joining together and being an actual community that has cohesion. In when it comes to group cohesion, you can't just have it be a series of events where it's like, oh, you can go here and you can see this particular person talk about this topic. It's also having a bunch of um, sorry, my girlfriend's coming in, but it's also um, having stuff to talk about that throughout our day. So like we often have little points in our lives where we can think about it's like, oh well, I have a question about this and I don't think it's something I can just Google. So let's talk about it in the chat, and maybe we can refer back to different events to eventually um, get a full scope of what's going on. Um, of course, it's like still the early days, but there's still a lot of engagement going on. And oh my gosh, if like the X and YouTube get just as popular, I see it being a place where a lot of people feel at home doing their ketogenic interventions for mental health, and understanding that um, though many may have luck with medications, those who don't also have a place to go as well. And those who abide by dietary interventions for mental health can feel at home.
Yeah, and I'll add and neurological health, because we're focused
Yeah.
on both. But and how I see it too is, well, where it kind of had its inception is with this Think Smart profile. You can see it behind me. The Think Smart profile is that metabolic mind can put information out there, but they can't like have the conversation. So what I see on the Facebook group is that, and what I would like to see as this grows and expands, is everyone who has filled out a profile, who has a Facebook page, I get it, some people don't, um, joins us there, and so that we can actually engage. Like, I saw your profile, but I don't know how to talk to you. Well, you can actually come into this Facebook group with and actually engage in a conversation with someone. I saw that you do this. And how do you make that work? It's not working for me. What are some things I could try? And then maybe somebody else who's has the lived experience can also chime in. So I really see this as being like the conversational piece that we're kind of missing with information coming at us. We can now actually
Yeah.
engage with that information.
Right, because it's not just like science and um, the actual methods you get to conclusions, it doesn't take into account sometimes culture and context. It's kind of like it's kind of a physiological analog for what you ought to do, but it's not something that based on your particular circumstance should do. And with these communities, you can kind of gauge where other people are in their journey, and then appraise. It's kind of an appraisal to yourself, like, okay, if this person did this and this, maybe in this instance, it may also work for me. So let's give it a try. In that way, in that sense, you're kind of your own little scientist as well. You have a community to kind of give you ideas and help support you in these little experiments. And I think that this, despite like, I'm not saying that you should go out and just experiment all you want. Of course, this should be facilitated by a medical professional, but there are certain, at least especially with a ketogenic diet, there are certain things based on whatever conditions you have, that may interact differently with you. And when you go out and try something new, it may not be something you can always feel comfortable talking to your physician about. So talking with friends who are also doing these ketogenic experiments is a wonderful thing to have. And it gives you a sense of community when you do it. So.
Yeah, I agree. And just to know that, it kind of just reinforces, I guess, that there is no one singular right way to approach this. And when you're inside of a community and you can talk about it, you can see what's going to work for you, what's not going to work for you, and assess and discuss. And I'm real excited to see this grow. And you're working so hard to make that happen. So I definitely appreciate you taking that role on, because it's a big job, and it's supposed to be therapeutic for you as well. Hopefully you're making connections, or at least after the initial phase is done, the connections start happening and it feels less like work and more like I get to join my community today. And I think everybody's heading that direction very, very quickly. So this comes out in January. So, we're up and running. If you want to join the Facebook community, it's Facebook at Metabolic Collective. Pretty easy to find us, but you have to answer all the questions. And now there can be a fight about which one of how somebody heard us. Did they hear it through you or through me? And which one of us gets to win the prize?
Oh yes, yeah. We have an ongoing like recruitment contest going on, like seeing if we can have others invited in and like have them referred when they answer the questions in the Facebook group. And so far, we only pretty much have Metabolic Collective staff who have points on the board. So I'm just like, do I even want to like I don't want them to get the prize, but at the same time we need more engagement. So I think in the coming weeks I'm going to just say like, hey, just so everybody remembers, like we're having a little contest going on, and we will have, though we haven't figured out an exact prize, we will have prizes, and we're still not sure what they will be, but yeah, it's still ongoing, and I'm excited to see who actually gets in on it once we get another promotion going.
It'll basically be the first person who's not staff that has their name written down. They win.
I'm like, honestly, you just for participating, here you go.
Well, we are trying to make it fun over there, and we're all starting to engage in better conversations. It's been a learning curve for all of us. I mean, like I said, we are taking concepts and ideas and turning them into things that we really just have this passion to connect everyone and to create advocacy. So within our groups, you'll hear us talk about different advocacy groups that are happening, or different advocacy projects that you could possibly participate in. So if you, like many of us, have experienced the results of the ketogenic diet, and then you've wanted to stand on top of the mountain and yell to everyone that that this is the way, or this is something that you've learned, but you didn't know how to manage that energy and actually turn it into something this is the place to go because we can help you figure it
This
out, join a
this is
group.
the mountain. We got like a little village on top of the mountain, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
We're the little people that live in the village on top of the
That's exactly right. And we want more people to come join us up there and help us. And maybe we get some megaphones and really start yelling. But that's really what this is about. Like, we're taking everybody, like, we talk about it in the metabolic health space where, like, everybody was in silos. And then Metabolic Mind kind of came in and put everybody together in one place. And then all of a sudden, the movement really started getting faster. Well, there's all of us with this lived experience and this energy to get it out there. But our wheels are spinning because we don't exactly know how to get it out there. And that's what this is doing. This is what we're trying to do with Metabolic Collective.
Yeah, because a lot of these, a lot of lived experiences also coming from clinicians, and a lot of clinicians, they sometimes have the outlets because they have different conferences they go to, they have a voice in their particular institution, and that's a good outlet to get the word out. But when it comes to people who are not coming from, the medical, the psychological, the psychiatric fields, it's just kind of you're yelling at a brick wall. So hopefully this will be something that breaks down that brick wall and gets the word out across all different walks of life.
I think we're just in its beginning stages, but it's certainly going to get there with the team that has been created to make that happen. I really feel like it's moving in that direction.
Mhm.
Well, Ben, it's been an hour. I hope it didn't feel like we trudged along in this conversation. I have this list of questions that I didn't even get to. Like I told you, I never get to my questions because everything you said was something I wanted to know more about. And I'm just so thankful that you joined me today and shared your story. And like I told you before we got started, this is the first one. And then I'm never going to be able to book you again because you're going to be so
Oh, sure.
busy.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's no way. And even if then, I'd put you right at the top spot because I'm really thankful for letting me just to be a part of this team and to actually lead the charge on Facebook. So, yeah, again, thank you very much for having me on, and I look forward to coming back if you'll have me.
Oh, of course. So, on behalf of Ben Boyd, I'm Robin Dobbins, and thank you for hearing our Keto biography. Bye.
Bye.